Hi, I'm Liam 34, and this is the story of my parents' 35th wedding anniversary party, an event that began as a routine family gathering but quickly unraveled into a night I'll never forget, exposing a secret buried for decades. My parents, Martin and Elaine, always presented a facade of perfection to the outside world, a successful local business, charity work, and lavish events. But behind closed doors, their lives were a stark contrast, filled with subtle yet constant manipulation and control, especially within the family. 2 weeks before the party, a formal, almost ceremonial invitation arrived, adorned with their vintage wedding photo. I was hesitant to attend, having grown distant due to their exhausting demands and deceptive nature. However, my sister Sophie's insistence persuaded me. The party was held at their house, meticulously prepared with fresh flowers, a manicured lawn, and a string quartet. The atmosphere screamed celebration, but also felt like a performance. From the moment I arrived, I noticed the superficiality of the interactions. Guests wore smiles that seemed more like masks, and my parents appeared more concerned with appearances than genuine enjoyment. My father, Martin, repeatedly slipped away to his study or the garage, often accompanied by his brother, Uncle Frank. I knew their relationship extended beyond family, hinting at shady business dealings. My mother, Elaine, meticulously orchestrated the event, her charm a weapon of control. Yet beneath it, I sensed a deep tension, as if she anticipated something going wrong. Around 8 p.m., as the crowd thinned, the atmosphere shifted. I saw my mother retreat to the kitchen, where she made a hushed, worried phone call, glancing nervously toward my father's study. Sophie later pulled me aside, having observed the same odd behaviors: Dad's disappearances, Mom's secret calls, and Uncle Frank's mysterious black briefcase. "I don't like this," Sophie whispered. "It's like they're hiding something serious." Later, near the study door, I overheard Dad and Uncle Frank in an intense, low conversation. Snippets like "the deal," "can't afford to lose this," and "contingency plan" made my stomach churn. Their desperation suggested something far more sinister than a typical business negotiation. I also witnessed my mother on the balcony, phone pressed to her ear, eyes darting, and Uncle Frank pacing by the garage, looking frustrated. My father, usually so confident, was noticeably pale. The most shocking moment came when I overheard my mother and Sophie arguing in a guest bedroom. Sophie's voice was strained. "Mom, this can't go on. You're destroying us." My mother's chilling reply was, "You don't understand the stakes. This is bigger than any of us, and I won't let anyone ruin what I've built." Her cold, unyielding tone, combined with Sophie's clear frustration, made it clear this was no ordinary family dispute. The next morning, a knock on my door revealed Mr. Caldwell, a sharply dressed lawyer representing my parents. His presence and the mention of estate and family business immediately raised my suspicions. I called Sophie, who joined me, sensing the tension. In the study, my parents and Uncle Frank awaited us. My father looked grim, my mother's lips were pressed tight, and Uncle Frank's usual smirk was absent. Mr. Caldwell began by stating that my parents' thriving company was at risk due to an attempted hostile takeover, a fact I'd never heard. My father and Uncle Frank asserted that difficult decisions were necessary, including re-evaluating ownership stakes and family involvement. Mr. Caldwell then handed me a dense legal document, a new agreement that drastically reduced any claims Sophie and I might have to the business, and worse, made us liable for future company debts over which we had no control. This doesn't make sense. You're asking us to give up control and take on liabilities, I questioned, confused and angry. My mother's thin smile didn't reach her eyes as she stated, "It's necessary. We can't have distractions or dissenters threatening the stability of the company." Sophie sharply countered, "You've been running things without us for years. Now you want us to sign this after keeping us in the dark?" My father's face hardened. "You're being naive. This is business. Family feelings don't come into it." The room grew colder, and I realized how little regard they truly had for us. When I requested time to review the document, my mother, irritated, stated, "We don't have time. The deadline is tomorrow." This was clearly an ultimatum. Over the next day, I began piecing together the truth. Speaking with family friends and longtime employees, I uncovered a shocking reality. My father and Uncle Frank were involved in questionable deals, funneling money into offshore accounts and intimidating business partners. My mother wasn't a passive player. She was the mastermind, using her charm and connections to suppress dissent and keep the family quiet. I confronted Sophie, who was visibly shaken. "They've been hiding this from us for years," she said. "I always thought Mom was the perfect parent, but she's been controlling every piece of our lives." That night, I overheard my parents whispering on the phone, plotting their next moves to secure their power, even if it meant completely cutting us out. The breaking point arrived at a family dinner that evening. My father, in front of all the guests, dropped a bombshell. Sophie and I had refused to sign the new agreement, thus forfeiting any claim to the family business. My mother's smile was cold and triumphant. When I tried to speak, Dad cut me off, declaring the decision final and anyone who challenged the family's unity unwelcome. The guests shifted uncomfortably, and even relatives I thought were on our side seemed hesitant to intervene. My parents doubled down, portraying us as ungrateful and greedy, while the truth was they had spent years building an empire on lies and intimidation. Sophie and I left the party early, stunned and betrayed. The days following the anniversary party were incredibly difficult. Sophie and I, surrounded by documents and notes in my apartment, knew we needed solid proof to expose the manipulation and fraud. My parents were meticulous, their official records spotless, but I had contacts from my past in corporate compliance and memories of former employees who might have information. We discreetly reached out to Maria, a former accountant who had left the company years ago. After some convincing, she agreed to meet, revealing ghost payrolls, unexplained transfers to offshore accounts, invoices for non-existent services, and paychecks issued to phantom employees. "The company was bleeding money," Maria whispered, "but none of it showed up in the books. And whenever I asked about it, they dismissed me or threatened to fire me." This was deliberate deception on a massive scale. We also contacted other long-term employees who, while scared, provided anonymous testimony, confirming intimidation tactics and a family that ruled with an iron fist. Sophie, using her legal background, painstakingly combed through our parents' personal files, unearthing old contracts, wills, and company charters. She discovered clauses preventing shareholders from challenging decisions, stipulations granting my parents power to fire board members at will, and evidence of company assets quietly transferred into private, untransparent trusts. One evening, exhausted, Sophie quietly stated, "They planned all of this. They never intended for us to inherit anything. It was all a trap." I nodded, realizing the post-party threats and account freezes were just tactics to isolate us. I understood how deeply their web of control ran. They had built their family and business like a fortress, designed to exclude anyone who didn't fit their mold. Over the next few weeks, we meticulously compiled our evidence, copies of financial irregularities, sworn statements from former employees, correspondence hinting at intimidation, and legal documents proving their attempts to cut us out. It felt like assembling a puzzle, each piece revealing a darker picture. We also started building a network of allies, including Claire, an investigative journalist friend, who began digging into the company's history. I received a call from Henry, a retired business partner of my father's who had been pushed out years ago. "You're onto something," he said. Martin and Frank built their empire on lies and backdoor deals. "They'll do anything to protect their image." He warned me to be careful, a warning that proved true when Sophie and I found a note under my door, "Stop or you will lose everything." This chilling message only fueled our resolve. We stepped up our efforts, covertly recording conversations. At a family dinner, under the guise of reconciliation, I captured a chilling exchange. My mother, thinking no one was listening, declared, "I don't care what it takes. If Liam and Sophie want to fight, they'll get one, but we won't lose this company. Not now, not ever." My father added, "They think they can threaten us, but we have the town in our pocket. They're the outsiders, not us." We also documented how they had professionally undermined us, spreading rumors and blocking job opportunities. The more evidence we gathered, the more I realized how deeply they had poisoned not just the business, but our family's entire reputation. After weeks of meticulous preparation, Sophie and I, armed with our comprehensive report, met with Claire. We had documented everything: covert fund transfers, fabricated payroll schemes, intimidation tactics, and the decades-long conspiracy to exclude us from the company's ownership. The report exposed a full picture of manipulation, control, and betrayal. With this dossier, we approached local authorities, financial regulators, tax investigators, and law enforcement. Our evidence was undeniable, and within days, official investigations were launched. The company's assets were frozen, and my parents and Uncle Frank were suspended from their roles. News of the scandal spread like wildfire. Their carefully cultivated image crumbled, revealing a darker truth. Organizations and charities distanced themselves, and invitations stopped arriving. Predictably, my parents fought back with high-profile legal teams and aggressive counterattacks, sending threats and hiring PR experts to paint us as ungrateful children. But their accusations felt hollow against the mountain of indisputable evidence. The company's board of directors, blindsided by the revelations, voted to remove my parents and Uncle Frank from all positions of authority. With the support of other shareholders, Sophie and I were appointed as the new leaders, tasked with rebuilding the company. Taking control was immensely challenging. We inherited a company riddled with financial instability and fractured relationships. We spent countless late nights untangling messy ledgers, rebuilding trust with employees, and implementing transparent, fair policies, values that had been absent before. Meanwhile, my parents faced a steep fall from grace. Their personal finances were frozen, their social standing evaporated, and family ties disintegrated completely. Despite everything, they refused to show remorse, clinging stubbornly to their pride and bitterness. Sophie and I consciously chose not to forgive. Their decades of manipulation and betrayal had left scars too deep to heal. Our priority became protecting ourselves and building a future free from their toxic grip. Justice for us wasn't about revenge. It was about shining a light on the truth and reclaiming what was rightfully ours. Several years later, the company thrives under Sophie's and my leadership, rebuilt on a foundation of integrity and hard work, something my parents never valued. While the past still echoes, it no longer holds power over us. I've come to understand that family isn't always defined by blood or tradition. Sometimes it means standing up for yourself, especially when those closest to you become the ones who hurt you the most.